important items: IP address, mask or a net mask, or sometimes it is also called as subnet mask, then gateway and DNS. So these are the 4 important properties. And for a different operating system, you have different files. You can go along with that. So you have, for let's say example, CentOS and RHEL6.x. The file is different, and that file name is etc, then sysconfig slash network scripts slash if cfg-eth0. So what we are saying here, the file is inside the etc directory. Under there is a sysconfig directory. Under there is a network script directory. Under that you have the if cfg-eth0. If it is a CentOS RHEL7.x, there is a little change. Network scripts and if CFG, and the naming convention is ENP0, S3, and so on. If it is a Ubuntu operating system, /etc network /interfaces. So these are 3 different files for different operating system and operating flavors. Okay. So we are, I believe, working with this operating system 7. So let's go and confirm. Here we go. So let's log in and let's go with that. So we'll say cat OS release, and we are using 7 version. So we'll use the 7. What is my IP address? IP-addr show. So I'm able to see that 10.0.2.15. So let me log in via PuTTY. I say go with that. So yes, we have created the user DevOps. We will log in with the user DevOps and we will start working with that file. Now, important thing under that file is we need to understand 2 parameters are very important. One is the onboot is equal to yes, and second is boot protocol is equal to DHCP. Yes, please. So now if you are looking for dynamic IP, you have to go with this setting. Now, what is the dynamic IP? You will get the IP address automatically. Automatically means who will give that IP address? This DHCP server give. That's why we are saying boot protocol is the DHCP. So when your server gets started and when it see this line, it will try to connect to the DHCP. Hey, give me the IP address, give me the IP address. So DHCP will now give the IP address to your machine. And on boot is equal to yes. That means whenever you restart your machine, your network should be on. That is what this setting is telling about. So let me log into the system and let's see that. We will open that file. We will open that file. So vi/etc sysconfig network scripts. Then if CFG and we have ENP0S3 because we are using 7 version. Ready, steady, go. Shall we open the file? Now, 2 parameters are important. 1, 2, and 3. So it says, vi command not found. Why? Did we not have vi command? Which vim? We don't have yum-y install. Yeah. Okay, let me install the vim and let's go further. So I'm not sure why we don't have that package. It is expected to be there, but it is not there. Anyhow, no problem. So we will connect to the internet. We will download the package and we'll install that. So it is going to the internet and it is opening. Okay. Now what is a VI? VI is an editor. VI is an editor. Like you have Notepad, WordPad, Notepad++, some editors in the Windows, right? Similarly, you have an editor in Linux. And if you want to showcase a good experience in Linux, you should be master in the VI editor. What do you have to be? You should be good at the VI editor because your speed in the VI editor tells how acquainted you are with the VI editor, how good you are with the VI editor, because 90% of the work you will do with the VI editor only. You have to open the file, make the changes, save the file, open the file, make the changes, save the file. So a lot of activities you will do with the VI editor. So you should be very, very good at VI editor. So we will see that in a couple of moments, but let's go and see that. Now what is happening? It says I'm not able to get the network. How to check the network is correct or not? So how to do that? Ping yahoo.com. What it is saying? So is our network working? Yes, we got the name resolution. DNS is working and is pinging the packets. So packet 1, packet 2, packet 3, packet 4, and so on. So it is going with that. So yesterday, what was the packet size or timing? 300 milliseconds. Now today is what? That means what we can understand? Network is slow. There is a network latency. You can understand that my network is slow. So PS Ivani grep yum. So we are the process running. I will kill that process. Killing means stopping the process. So I will go with that and stop the process. Let me go and stop. So don't worry right now. We will see that all these things. Okay. So I clear the process. The process is still there. So it is not going with that. I need to go with that. Yes. So now it is gone. Okay. Let's run the process again. Let's install the Vim again. Let's go with the. So I found that network is slow today. So I need to do the complaint about why the network is becoming slow, because that is not a good thing. So member Dilip, are you there? Okay. So I'm not sure he's available, but let me put that. Rom, please request network person to look into this. We have slow network connection. Right. So please take a look. That network is slow and we are not able to go with proper things. So our speed should be very fast. It should get, we should not have any latency or delay. Okay. So it is trying to go, but it is very, very slow. So that is not a good way. Okay. So first it's fail. What it says? It's fail. So it says not able to resolve. It's okay. So what happens? We learn in the package management. If one mirror location fails, what happens? It will go to the other mirror location. So automatically it is going there. So we are not doing anything. It is failing, no problem. It is going to the other location and it is trying to download the necessary files and packages. So yum is, that's why very good, very beautiful, because it will have a failover mechanism. And how much mirror sets we have? Nearly 5,000 mirror sets we have. So we don't have to worry about if one site fails, it automatically go to the other sites and try to get the necessary details. So we have very slow speed today, which is the 46 KB. Now, what does that mean? How much speed I have? Internet speed? How much speed it is? So in real time, now this question can be asked in interview. Okay. The interview question is, what is your network speed? Now, when you buy your network, when you go to the internet service provider, what they say? 4 Mbps or 8 Mbps, right? So what is your real speed? So you have to divide this number by 8. Why? Because it is M. M means megabits, B means bits, okay, and per second. So it is what? Megabits per second. But in real time, we will go with the bytes. You see that it is a capital B here. You see the capital B? So capital B means what? That is what it says. So how many bits is equal to? 8 bits is equal to 1 byte, right? 1B, capital B, that is a bytes. Now what do you mean by bit? What do you mean by bit? So it is called as a binary digit. That's why we call it as a bit. What is a bit? Binary. That is a bit, which is zeros or ones. So you have to divide it by the 8. So here it says I need something packages. You see that? Now for Vim, it is need a lot of packages to be upgraded on this system. So it is saying that how many packages? One package and how many dependencies? 30 dependencies. So it needs to go with that. Let it go. So it will go one by one. Now you see that how much it is downloading. It is downloading how much size? 18. But when it install, how much size it becomes? 60 MB. So why it is there? Because our package are in the compressed form. Packages are always in the compressed form. Okay. So let it download. So we'll try to understand something more here. So when you are saying my speed is 4 Mbps, actually how much you are able to get that? So 4 Mbps means how many kbps? Is it nearly equal to 128 kbps? What is that? It is nearly to, this is 128 kbps. Is it true? Yes or no? So 1 divided by 8, how much? 1 divided by 8 is how much? You have to get the calculator. Okay, let's go with that. Where is my calculator? Yes, 1 divided by 8. How much it is? 125. So it is nearly 128 because our one kilobyte is what? Yes, it is a 1024. So our speed is 128 kbps. So this is the interview question. They may ask, hey, what is the speed of your network? So you should able to tell that. If you are asking in bits, it is a 8 or 4 Mbps. When you go with that, you'll go. And if it is a 8 Mbps network, what is your speed? 512 kb seconds. Is clear? This is the real speed you'll have. But to show the big number, the service provider will give that 8 Mbps and 4 Mbps, big number, right? And then is kbps is very small. So that you need to understand. Okay, so we are at the final stage of getting the package. Two packages are there, 30, 31, 30, 31, Perl, Vim. It is now beauty of this is it is downloading parallelly two packages. In the older version, it was at a time downloading one package. But now, to take advantage of the network, it may download 4 or 5 packages simultaneously. That is what is YUM has been improved in the recent year. So parallelly, you can download two packages. It is going around two packages, 30, 31. You can see here. It is keep on changing, 30, 31, 30, 31. So it is downloading simultaneously two packages. Parallelly, it is downloading two packages. So there are a lot of improvements in the CentOS 7. They have tried to improve the speed of the parallel processing. So booting time is very less. Downloading time will be very less because you are doing things are in parallel. So now homework for you. What is the difference between CentOS 6 and CentOS 7? That you have to figure it out. Okay. So what is the homework? So yesterday we have put one homework there. Did we put the homework? How to find a package name from the command or something? So how many of you did that homework? So I will request that please do that. Sunil is not going to tell. Once the homework is given to you, you have to do that. And if you have difficulty, you have to come back to me, right? So, but it is very important because that's the interview question. So you need to complete that. All the homeworks nearly by the interview questions you will face there. So today is our network position is very horrible. So we have to go with like a snail speed is going bit by bit and so on. Okay, now it is not flipping. One package is done. 30th is done. Now it is going with 31. Okay, so 14, 13, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we are expecting that we should get that package. Now what we will do, we will open the file, but we don't have editor. By default, it should be in the operating system. Yesterday, I believe we have deleted the editor, right? Okay, so it's going with that. Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Installation happening. dependency is happening, all the things it will do by itself. You don't have to. So first is installing, then verification step, and then it will done. So now it is a final thing, 3031. Let's go with that. So we have installed the VM, verifying. Yes, all the things are done. Now let's open our file. So we are interested in that file. Where is our file? So we are writing and going with this file. So I'll say open VI editor, ready, steady, go. Yes, it says still okay. We'll go with the VIM. Do we have VIM? Yes, so we'll go with the VIM. VIM is what? VI editor modified. So it is a big brother of VI. So we are going with that. Okay, now two parameters are important. Number one, what is that? Boot protocol. So I will bring it down. Okay, hold on. So what I will do, I will say sudo. Now why I say sudo? So because normal user cannot edit or change this file, only root user can change this file. So we are going with the sudo, and I am giving the DevOps password. I will cut this line and I will paste this line. We'll learn how to do that. Don't worry. But on boot is what? Yes, that is your first thing. And boot protocol is what? DHCP. In real time, all your laptops or desktops machine will have this setting. Okay, and you have to make sure these two parameters are correct. On boot is equal to yes, and the boot protocol is equal to DHCP. Suppose you are not getting the network, so first you have to open this file and check that on boot is equal to yes. If it is not yes, you have to make it yes, and then you have to reboot the system or restart the network service. That is a step you need to go along with that. Okay, now how to give the static IP? Now we'll go with the static IP. So we have talked about the dynamic IP here. Hold on, I believe we have two files. Okay, so okay, here we go. So now we will go with the static IP. Now suppose in real time you have to set the static IP. What you will do? You will go in this file, same file, but now you will say on boot is equal to yes, that is should be same, but boot protocol should be either static or none. Both are valid. So it should be either static or it should be none. Then you will give the IP address, IPDDR. What is IP address? 192.168.0. Let's say 200. Now I am giving this random number. Why? In real time, what you will do? You will talk to the network administrator, get this number, IP address. What second number you will get? Mask 255.255.255.0. Then gateway. Gateway. What is the gateway? 192.168.0.1. Typically, the first IP address of your network is given to the gateway. Then DNS. How many DNS you can give? You can give 3 DNS. You can give maximum 3 DNS. DNS 3. So you can give first as an internal DNS. So you'll say 192.168.0.2 or something, whatever DNS IP you have. Then you will go with the Google DNS 8.8.8.8, and you will go 8.8.4.4. But I'm giving it with my mind currently, but you don't have to do that. You have to talk to your network administrator and get all these details. Which details? IP address, this one. Okay, this one, everything. You'll go back and you'll get all these details from your network administrator. Fill in the blanks with appropriate word. You have to put those lines there. So what I will do, I'll copy and paste these lines. I'll paste these lines here. I'll go here. I'll put that line here. And I need to copy. I have not copied that. Okay, don't put that arrows. Don't put that arrows, okay? Otherwise you will trouble. This, and what is the, here you have to put, to say, or none. You can go anywhere, like it's a static or none. So it is good idea to put static. So I need, oh, okay, this is the static IP. So it is clear indication of that. Clear? So this is how you will work, and you will give the permanent IP address to your server. So this is called as a static IP address. So how to set the static IP address? You have to go and set in this file. This is very, 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 very important, that how you can go with that. So this clear? Okay, now what you will do? So I will not save this file. Just to demonstrate, I have go with that. I will go with the DHCP. So I will quit. I will say don't save anything. Just go out. Okay. Okay. Go out. Okay. Now this is how you'll open the file and you will make the modifications in that file. Is this clear? Any question? Any doubt at this moment? Okay. Get this and below info from your network admin. Please, we do not have to apply our mind. Okay, so we don't have to apply our mind. We have to get this information, all the information from the. So this is clear, and then you have to save and exit. So I did as a quit. Don't do that. You have to save and exit. After you do that, you have to start the service. So if it is a CentOS 6 or 7, so let's go with the 6.x. So what you will do? You will say service network restart, and of course you have to either be a root or sudo. Normal user cannot do the restart of the network. Okay, and for 7 it is different. So you have to say system CTL restart network service. So you have to go with that. Okay, so same case with the Ubuntu. If you are using Ubuntu, so it is the same. Okay, so you have to save this file, do the restart of that. Okay, so this is very, very important. This file is very, very important. Which file? I will go up and I will say, hey, go with this file. If you are going with the 7 version, go with this file. This is a very, very important file as far as the network is concerned. Is clear? But in real time, we have to talk to the network admin and get those details. Do not apply your own mind here. Even I have 18 years of experience, I will not put my mind there, because every customer, every network is different. So we don't know about those networks. Network is out of our scope. So we have to make sure that once we have fill in these appropriate blanks, we restart the service and we have to check the service. Now, how to check the service? The network is correct or not? Which things you will fire? Ping, yahoo.com or google.com. Make sure that what you should get? You should get the IP address of Google. If you are not able to get the IP address of Google, there is a problem. In where it is a problem? The problem is in the DNS, because you are not able to convert name to IP. Let's do that, because that's very important when troubleshooting. These are all steps important. So I'll say service network stop. But which we are using? OS we are using? OS release 7 version. So we'll say system CTL stop network service. So I'll deliberately stop the service. Let's see what happens. I stop. Now how to get the IP address? What is the command to get the IP address? I say IP addr show. No, don't use if config. For 7, if config will not work. 7 if config, we have installed that, it will work, but in real time it will not work. So you don't have to go with the if config. So you have to go with the which command? IP addr show for 7. So now what is the IP address we are able to see? So we have which interface we are using? ENP0S3. So what is there? No IP available here. Why? Because network is down. Network is down. We don't have IP address. Now if I say ping yahoo.com, let's go and see that what happens. So it is trying to connect to the DNS. Hey DNS, give me IP, give me IP, give me IP. I don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere. It is going to the DNS and it is trying to get the IP address. So it will try, you say, right? Try, never cry. It will keep on trying with that. And what it says now? Unknown host. That is the error you will get. If you see that unknown host, that means DNS is not working or your network is not working. Clear? Got it? Okay, now same error we will see. I will say yum-y install some package httpd. Let's go and install some package. We'll run that. Now let's see what happens, because now we don't have network, and what error we should get, we'll see that. Now this is the common error, this is the common conception or misconception, that which command we are using currently? Yum command. So people will say this is a yum error, but this is not the yum error. This will become a network error because your network is not there. So looking at the error message, you need to understand what type of error it is. That's why I always say, see the error message, understand the error message. If you do not understand the message, don't go further. Stop there itself. What do you have to do? You have to stop there itself. First, fully understand what is that error. Then only take the next step. If you bypass the error, you will never able to get what you are expecting. Okay? So if you bypass the error, what will happen? You'll never get that, because it is complaining you, hey, there is a problem, there is a problem. Now you see what is the problem it is saying? What problem it is saying? Error number 14. What is that? Could not resolve host. Now that is the meaning. That means network is a problem, DNS is the problem. Resolving means what? I am trying to get the IP address of the machine. I am not able to get that. What this says? Could not resolve host. So let's write it down because it's very important when you are doing a troubleshooting. So what kind of error you may get? So number one, what is the error? Big letter. Unknown host. If you saw this error, this may be network or DNS error. Or what is the next error? What is the next error? Could not resolve host. Both meaning the same thing. Okay. Could not resolve host. Same network or DNS. So this is clear. You need to understand the error. If you are not able to understand, you'll not able to. When you go to the doctor, you say, doctor, paining. And doctor says, okay. Can doctor help you? Why he may not able to help you? Because you are not telling the right message. You are not giving the right information. Hey, my head is paining, stomach is paining, or my foot is paining. Right? So you have to give and understand what is the exact. Doctor will ask, okay, where it is paining. Then you say, oh, my head is paining. Okay. Then what you will do? He will give a proper pill to go with that. Yes. He will give a pill to solve the problem. So you need to understand this. Unknown host or could not resolve. So your first lesson in DevOps, read the error message carefully. And if you want to come to me and want to get the help, then first you have to tell me what is the error. And you have to tell me the meaning of the error. Then I will help you. That is your first thing. Why? Because this is the first thing that you need to learn. What you are learning? You are not learning the commands. You are not learning any networking. You are not learning anything. But you have to first learn how to understand the error. Is clear? That is the number one skill you need to learn. And that is the only thing which will help you to get the job. Because in job, what is the job? What is the job? Loudly, loudly. To perform the task. What task you are performing? What operations? What operations? Those are all stories. Those are all stories. Suppose somebody has and hire you, say, hey, I will give you a job, and next day they will give you the, what is the job? You said performing some task, right? So next day they will give you a broom in your hand and say, hey, clean the floor. That is your job? Why? Job is a job, right? Then why you're not saying? It is not a dignity, right? Okay, then I will make that, hey, okay, keep this server from here to there. That is also a job, right? Moving the server from one place to a dignified job, big job. You are moving the servers. Instead of stones and everything, you are moving the servers. That is a job, right? Yes or no? So what is the job then? Yes, your number one thing is problem solving. Why you are there? To solve the problem. If you cannot solve the problem, you'll never get the job. Simple. Is clear? All the Linux problem, all the DevOps problem, all the problems. You have to solve the problems. You will get the money only to solve the problem. Plumber will get money to solve the water problem. Mechanics is getting the money for solving your mechanical engine problem. Electrician will get the money if you solve the electrical problem. You have to solve the problem. That's all. And the more number of the problems you will solve, the more good you are. The more complex problem you will solve, the more money you will get. Simple. So what is the job? Solving problem. This is clear? That's why we are focusing on this. Understand the error, solve the problem. It will give you the money, more and more money. Good. Very good. So let's go further. So enough Russian pe bhashan. Let's start further. Okay, so now I started with the network. So let's go and start back our network. So how to start? I'll say service network or not systemctl. Systemctl start network service, because we are working in 7 versions. So we have to go with that. Oh, okay. We got it. IP ADDR show. We got the IP? Yes, I got the IP 10.02.15. Okay. And I'll ping the Yahoo. Is it working? I'm not sure. I need to check. So if it gets the IP address, my network is working. Yes, I'm able to get the IP address. My DNS is working. I'm able to get the ping. That means that Yahoo is also available. Okay, good. So we'll stop with that. So this is clear. So this is how you will check the network. Very systematic, very step by step. Now in real time, you have 2 types of networks. One is the NAT network. One is the bridge network. So what is that? Let's try to understand. So I will go with the machine. I will go with the settings. I will go with the network. Now you see what network I'm using? NAT network. Now yesterday we talked about, or in the previous session we talked about NAT. What is the NAT? Network address translation. That means you are converting the IP address from one network to other network. Now, what is the IP address of my Windows machine? How to get that? IP config all pipe more. Okay, what is my IP? What is my Windows IP? 192.168.0.2. And what is my Linux IP? What is my Linux IP? What is my Linux IP? 10.0.2.15. So let's see if I have the diagram. Let me bring up the diagram. Pictures. Network. I'll say network. I don't know. We have the diagram. Okay, I'll go with the date and timestamp. I need to go with the list. Hey, where is my list? Details. Okay, so let's go and see that. Measures or something. Let me see if yes, I have the virtualization box diagram. Okay, so basically this is what we have. So let me open and edit it. Open with Paint. Okay, now this is what is our diagram. So what is there? We have the basic hardware. We have the Mac machine or Windows machine here at this level. we have guest machines at the virtual machines. Now, what is my IP address of my virtual machine here? At this machine we are working 10.0.2.15. This is what is my IP address. And what is my Windows IP here? 192.168.0.2. Right? So you see that we are working in two different networks. We are working in two different networks because we are in the which network? We are in the NAT network. So this machine is in the NAT. So what is mean by NAT? Network address translation. That means you are working in two different networks. So in real time, what you have to do? You have to convert that NAT network into bridge network. Okay. So you'll go to the bridge network. So let's go with the bridge network, and then we will see the difference. Let's go here. Let's go machine settings, networking, and we'll change from NAT to bridge. So I'll click. There are various levels, but in real time only two things, either NAT or bridge. So I'll go with the bridge. Now it is saying going from the Wi-Fi or the Ethernet adapter. So I'll say go with the Wi-Fi. That means get the IP from Wi-Fi. Okay. So I'll say okay. Now I have changed the network configuration. So what I need to do? I need to restart the network. So I'll say systemctl restart network service. Now currently what is my IP address? 10.0.2.15. But after restart and after getting that bridge, let's see what happens. 1, 2, and 3. Going with that, going with that, going with that. So it's came up. Let's go and see what is my IP address. Now what is my IP address? 192.168.0.7. That means if I go on a bridge network, my IP address will 192.168.0.7. That means I will be, or my VM will be on the same network as of my Windows machine. So now you see that this is also 192.168. So Windows machine, what is the range? 192.168.0 dot something. What is the range after the bridge? So we are in the same network. We are in the same. So real time, go always with the bridge. That way it will help you to go with that bridge. So this machine is on the bridge. Let's say example. So bridge machine will bring you into the right network. That is whatever the Windows machine network is there, you will be in the same network. So this is clear. This is clear. Okay. So whenever you install an operating system, whenever you go with the operating system, go for bridge network. Which network you will go? So hence onward, I will go with the bridge network. So I'm converting now myself to bridge network. Okay. Clear? Any question, any doubt at this moment? So you will work with the bridge network. Why? Because we are bringing that. Now, for example, if you are sitting in the aeroplane, now there is no Wi-Fi, nothing. You are above the sky. There is no tower, right? You will not carry tower with you. So what will happen? Then you should go to the NAT network so that you can work in the flight also. If you want to have some networking things in the flight also, you can work with that with the NAT network. So when there is no network, go for NAT. When there is outside network available, go for bridge. So this is clear. When to use NAT, when to use bridge. So when you don't have network, I will suggest go for NAT. Or if you want a network isolation, if you want two different network, go for NAT. And if you have, or if you want a common network for all your machines, go for bridge. Is clear? So this is very, very important thing that you need to understand. NAT and bridges. So let's go and write it. What is the NAT and bridge? Right. So we'll go with that. And we'll write what is the NAT? Network address translation. So if you are, if you don't have external network, you can use a NAT network. And what is the bridge? So if you have external network and want to bring all system on same network, you can use. So this clear? When to use bridge and when to use NAT? So I will recommend, but default you should go for bridge. So I will say go for bridge. Go for bridge. Because then it's really easy, help you to understand a lot of things there. Okay? So it's very easy to understand, very easy to work with that. Okay. Now, when you are working with the system, two things will interfere with you while you are learning. So what we will do? For learning purpose, we will stop some security aspects and some firewall. Okay. What we'll do? How to minimize the security level. So you will open a file. You'll say, hey, go to this file, sysconfig, SE Linux, and then you'll say config, and in that you will change the parameter SE Linux is equal to permissive. Then you will save and exit. That is the first thing you will do. Second command you will give, you will say that set enforce 0. And you have to do with the root access. Okay, so I'll say sudo. So you have to do all this thing with root. You cannot do with the normal things. And I will say that do not disturb other lines. Okay, do not disturb other lines in this file. And another command is sudo set enforce. That is the first thing we will do. Second thing we will do, we will disable firewall. So I'll say systemctl stop firewall d service, and I'll say systemctl disable firewall dot d service. So this is for which version? CentOS RHEL 7.x. If it is a 6, you have to do something different. What you will say? Service IP tables stop, and you say check config IP tables off. Okay, so you'll go with that. So depending upon the operating system, you will go and you will work with that. Okay. So shall I go and see the practical that what we are going to do? So we will first minimize the security level. We will bring down the level down a little bit, and we will say, hey, we will disable the firewall. This is only for the learning. In real time, you have to enable this both options. You have to go with the opening of the proper sections. But for the learning, we will bring them down. Okay. So done writing. So these are the two activities we will do. So first is the minimize security level. So first is that we will, so I'll say part 1, part 2. The part 1 and this is the part 2. So these are the two parts. We will bring in a little bit low security. Okay. So in that same thing. So ready, steady, go. Shall we go? Go with that. Now what is my IP address? So my IP address is 0.7. So I will open my putty. So now putty is closed because we changed the IP address. So I'll say new. I'll close the old ones. So here I will give the IP address of my Linux machine. What is the IP address? 192.168.0.7. And what is the port number? 22. So basically, you are having a SSH service through which you will log in, and the default port is 22. So we'll go with that. And last first time you log in, yes. And let's ask what is the username? We already have the username, which will go with that. We have logged in, right? So I say if I say IP ADDR show, it should show the same IP 192.168.0.7, which is we have in the this black and white screen, which we have on this black and white screen, same thing. So we are on the same machine, but with the different doors. In the first, I have gone with the main door. In the second, I came with the other door, with the SSH door. Okay, now we'll disable the security. So I'll say sudo vi/etc se linux and config. Okay, so I will make that. Okay, so I am not a vi, so I'll say vim. So we'll go with that, and instead of enforcing, what we have to say? Permissive. So I'll say I will not disturb any other line. So I'll say save and exit. I have saved that file. And second is what? You have to say set enforce 0. So these two commands you will run. Now what is the next command? systemctl stop firewall dot service. So it says that not loaded. Loaded means it is not there. Okay, you say disable. So it is disabled. And do we have IP tables? I know sudo service IP tables stop or something. Redirecting fail. Yes, because the service is not loaded. It's okay, good. So we don't have to worry about that. So I have disabled the firewall. Okay, now we are ready to do the further things. So now let's first learn with the editor. What is the editor? We talked about the editor. Which editor? Vi editor or Vim editor. So let's go and talk about that, because most of you may not be knowing the editor. So we'll touch base a little bit on the editor side. We'll try to get some more on that. Okay. So we will go with the Vi editor or Vim editor. Okay. So we'll learn something about the editor. What is the editor? Now, why we need an editor? We need an editor to update, change, modify, create new files, and so on. So we will have to go with that. Now, this editor, Vi editor, has 3 different modes. First is the edit mode. Second is the interactive mode. And third is the command mode. We have 3 different modes are available. Now, what we can do in these different modes, let's go and write it. So first I can say insert or append or replace. Okay, in the edit mode, what you can do? Insert, append, and replace. So you can do that operation. In the interactive mode, you can do copy, yank. It is called as yank or copy. Then you can do a paste. Copy and paste. Then you can delete. Let's say DD. When is delete line? You can say delete word. You can say delete character X. You can say U for undo. So these are the key. We have to keystroke. We have to type it. These are the keystroke. We have to type it so we can get the desired result. Then search slash and pattern. Search the pattern. So I am going with the minimum things that you can go along with that. And in the command mode, what you can say? You can say save and exit, or say exit, save and exit. Okay, save the file, quit without saving, or save and. So please write this down. It is important that you can easily work with that. And then we will see the editor there. Now, why we have to do this? Because we don't have mouse to click on that. Control S for save or these and that, all the stuff, right? We don't have that. So we have to go along with this command. So we will work with this commands. So done with writing. Ready, steady, go. So let's go and see the practical. Now VI editor is a very powerful editor. It is called as the king of editor. It's called as a king of editor. Okay, so let's go with that. Now I will create a new file. So I'll say VI brand new file dot text. Now you give the extension, you don't give the extensions, no problem. It's up to you. So in Linux, extensions are not mandatory. In Windows, extensions are .exe, .doc, and these and that, right? But it is not a mandatory. Ready, steady, go. Brand new file. So I will press enter. Now you see at the bottom what you are able to see? Brand new file, and in the bracket what you say? New file. Now when we are working by default, so this is the default mode. By default, which mode we are? We are in the interactive mode. By default, we will be in which mode? Interactive mode. So when we open the file, automatically we will jump into the interactive mode. So here we are in the interactive mode. Here we are having the interactive mode. Okay, now how to go to the insert mode or the edit mode? What is our first mode? Edit mode, right? So we want to go to the edit mode. So what is the command? Either you can press I, or you can press A, or you can press capital R. Any of three keys you put, you will be in the interactive mode or the insert mode or edit mode. Okay, so we'll go with that. So now I am pressing the button I. Now you have to see at the bottom what is happening. You have to see at the bottom what is going to happen here. Okay, because there's like a status bar. It is showing me at the bottom what is happening. Ready, steady, go. I will press the I button. I. Now which mode I am? I am in the insert mode. Why? Because the bottom line says you are in the insert mode. Nothing is there in that file. Just I have changed the mode. I went into the insert mode. Now I have to again come back to interactive mode. So I'll press the escape button. Which button? So I'll press the escape button. 1, 2, and 3. So what is happening here? We are out of insert mode, and where we are? Interactive mode. Again, I will press the another button. What? A, append. When I say append, what happens here? Again, you will be in the insert mode. Again, I will say escape. If I say capital R, what is the mode? Is this clear? So whenever you press the key, you will be in that mode. Now, if you have to come out, which key you have to press? Escape is your escape from the problem, right? If you don't know anything, press escape. That's all. Is it clear? That is why the escape key is there. And it is really that, because in the olden days, people not know what to do with the computer. So if they have any trouble, what they have to do? Just press the escape button. That is what there. Is it clear? That is why the button is called escape, because if you don't know anything, if you are in trouble, press escape. It will solve the problem. Good. I'll press escape. I'm back into the interactive mode. This is clear? Now I'll go into the insert mode again. Now I'll type, this is my first file and this is my second line in the file. File is a text file and have .txt extension to the file and so on. I can keep on writing whatever I want. We are in the VI editor and so on, right? And keep on writing. Now, as long as you are writing, because you are in the insert mode. How to come out of that? Escape. Good. Now I will go to the replace mode. Replace mode is what? Overwrite mode. So I'll say capital R, that is a shift R. So when I say capital R, now I can type overwrite mode. This is an overwrite mode. So what is doing? It is overwriting the word. It is replacing the words. That is what is the replace mode. This is clear? Done. So you are good with the edit mode now. I am coming out of that. So you are good with the edit mode. Just remember 3 keys. I, A, and capital R. That's all. Good. Now we are in the interactive mode. Now what you can do in the interactive mode? Let's go and see that. Copy, paste, delete, word, letter, these, that. Let's go and do that now. Ready, steady, go. Now which line you want to copy? There are 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which line you want to copy? Second line. Okay. Now what key I have to press? Y. That means what? Copy. So I'll say copy. Done. Copy done. What you have to do? Paste for P. So where you want to paste? Same line or at the bottom? I will say at the bottom. I will go to the bottom and I will say P. Then I will say P. So it's pasting. Whatever available in the buffer, pasting. Now I don't want this. So what is the button to come out? Escape button. But I don't want to escape now. I want to undo this. So undo is the option. U. So you. You see that? Undo. Simple. Very clear? So you can do something. If you type something, oh, I'm doing something and did a mistake. I want to undo it. I will, which key I will press? U. Done. You're back to normal, back to square one. Okay? Good. Now we will see the power. Okay, now you copied how many lines? 1 line. Now you can copy as many as lines you want. Let's say I want to copy 4 lines. So what I will say? 4YY. That means copy these 4 lines. 4YY. You see at the bottom what is saying? 4 line yanked. Yanked means copied. Now I'll paste that 4 lines. Paste 4 lines. Paste 4 lines. Paste 4 lines. You see that? So pasting that. Again I'll say undo. So I'll say undo. Good. Now you want to delete the lines. What is the command to delete the line? DD. So let's go. Which line you want to delete? Third line. Let's go with the third line. I'll say DD. Gone. DD. Gone. If I say undo, you back to. Is clear? It's very simple. You need to just understand what you are doing. If you know what you are doing, it is very easy. If you don't know what you are doing, then you are somewhere else. Right? You are in the ocean then. You don't know what you are doing. Okay, now what to have the word to delete the word? DW, delete word. Right? So which word you want to delete? Files, first word. Right? Okay, I will say DW. You see that? DW. You undo. Now suppose I want to delete 5 words. So what I will do? 5 DW. That's all. I'll say 5 DW. Go on 5 words. If I say U, numbers came back. Clear? Very simple, right? Very effective, very powerful. Now I want to delete a word or sorry, letter. What I will do? X. X. Gone. Undo. Suppose now I want to delete 4 characters. What I will say? 4X. That's all. 4X. Gone. I'll say undo. Right? See this magic? So now there is a good thing happening. Okay, good. Now suppose you have hundreds and thousands of line in your file and you want to search a particular word. So how will you search that? You have to say this slash. You see the pattern? You say slash and pattern. Okay. So I have which word? Common, I believe, file. Okay, file, I have the word file. So I say slash file. So search the word file, press enter. You see that what happens? It highlighted that word. Oh, these are the file words available there. Now where is my cursor? At the first file. Now I want to go to the next file. I will press next, N. N is for next. So where is my cursor now? Next, second file, next, next, next. Now if I press next, what will happen? It will again go back to the first. It's like a round robin. So now I will press next and what at the bottom line? Search hit bottom, continuing from top. So automatically it will go up and it will start searching again. Is clear? Sorry? How many lines? So many is what? Oh, you can go with the numbers. You can add the number. If you can, I'll show you how to go. But let's see. So you'll say NU, set NU. Sorry. Set. Right? So it's showing the number. It is not actually those numbers are not in the file. Actually, this is the, now I have said that show me the line number also. It is showing me the line number. So in the VI editor, there are 500 to 600 options. How many options? So much powerful it is that, but we are not going to cover all of them. So don't worry about that. Okay, so this is clear? No NU or not NU? What will say? Oh, so no numbers. It's okay, right? So definitely you can get. So I'll say that don't rely on this. This is just an introduction to you on the VI editor. It is not a tutorial for all the VI editors. Right? My work is to help you understand you the basic minimum thing which are needed to your day-to-day operation. Expertise you have to get by yourself. We are not here to make you the real expert in VI editor. We have a lot of things to cover there. So we'll go with those topics. But these are the basic topics that is expected that you should start learning by yourself. Try to get more command on those areas. This is clear? Okay. Any other question? So you can get the line number. You don't want line number, you can go with that. Okay. Okay. Any other thing you want to bring it up? Okay. Now till time, whatever work we are doing, this work is happening in memory. Where is happening? In the RAM. Nothing is happening on the disk. So we want to save that on the disk. What do you have to do? Save on the disk. So I'll say colon. Now we are in the third mode. Which mode? In the command mode. Where is my command mode? Here's the file. I will get rid of this file. We don't need this. So that way it will easily help us. Okay. So here is what is the third mode? Command. So you should be in the interactive mode first. Then only you can go into the command mode. Okay. Okay. Now I want to save that. So first I will be in the interactive mode. If I don't know I am in which mode, what I have to do? Press escape. So I will be in the interactive mode now. Now what I need to do? Into the command mode, I'll say colon W. Means what? Save. So what it says now? It says that this file has 14 lines and 144 characters and it is written down on the disk. So we are good with that. Now I want to quit. I want to exit out. I'll say quit. So now I came out of that. Now you can do the both things. You can say WQ, save and exit. Okay. Is clear? How to do the save and exit. So this is all about going with the editor. Now, sometime you don't want to change the file, but you want to see the file. So what you will say? You will go with the view. Which mode you will go? View. That is the advanced mode of the VI editor. So what is mean by view? We will see that. You have to see at the bottom line what it says. Okay, ready, steady, go. So please pay attention on the screen because it is helpful. If I say view and the file name, see at the bottom of the line what it says. So it says view is not a command. So say yum-y install view. You have to get it there. Hey, why it is not there? You have to get that. It says what? The view is not there. rpm-qa rep vi. Do you have vi minimal? We have enhanced. We don't have vi minimal. Sudo yum-y install yum minimal. Go with that. So now net speed is improved. You see that? Immediately gone. Okay. So now I'll go with the view command. Ready, steady, go. See at the bottom. What at the bottom is showing? Read only mode. That means sometimes what happens, we mistakenly put some keyboard here and there. Chances are that the file may get changed. Okay. So to avoid that, go with the read only mode, which is the view mode. Now, suppose I want to change this text. I want to, instead of text, I will say picture. So what I will do, I will try to delete that. Now, when I try to delete, what it says? At the bottom, what it says? Changing a read-only file. That means, hey, you are trying to change the file. Is it expected? Oh, no, it is not expected. So what I will do, I will exit out. But if it is expected, then I will replace this, go with that. And I will say, instead of text, I will say picture. But when I try to save now, let's see what happens. Hey, you told me that you are opening this file in read-only mode. Now you are trying to say write. How I can do that? So you are not allowed to write directly. So now you have to say write it forcefully. So you'll say :W and exclamation mark. That means you are overriding your order. First order was read-only order. Now you say, no, write it. I am saying you write it, so you have to write it. Is clear? So you are forcefully writing. Now it is allowing you to write because you are forcefully writing. Is clear? Okay, now I will go out again. I will come back with the read-only mode. And suppose I deleted this word by mistake, overwrite. I deleted that. Now I want to come out. I want to come out. So I'll say Q. It will not allow you to come with the Q, normal Q. Why? Because say, hey, you have opened the file in read-only mode and you have changed the file. Now you are running out without giving me the right thing. So do you want to save or do you want to really go out? If I want to say really go out, I will say Q. And then I will not save that file. I will come out. Force will come out. So that is why you are using the exclamation mark there. So you need to understand whatever the previous order you are giving, you have to override that order. But sometimes what happens, you see that I am opening this file, etc host file. Now I'll say, hey, add something. This is that and that is this or whatever stuff. I have added something. Now I'm trying to save it. What it says. Now if I say it, okay, I will say forcefully write it. Still it is not able to write it. Why? Because I am a normal user and I'm trying to update the file of a other user, which is not allowed. So this is restricted by permission. So even you go with the full force, it will not work because you don't have the permission to write on that file. That's why it is saying can't open file for writing. You have the, if you see that error, that means you don't have permission to write on that file. This is clear? So understand this error. Understanding the error is the number one skill you want to learn in the DevOps. Is clear? So that is all about editor. So we understood a couple of things there. Now I'll say practice. You will get a lot of things, but there are 500 different options. I'll say, Sunil, where I can get. So you can get these options when, now here I can go with that chat. How to know the dependency package of the package when you are downloading. It will automatically go with the dependency check. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, Sumant. So sorry, I didn't see your question ahead. Okay. So what we are trying to say, from where we can get the cheat sheet, where we can get the cheat. So I'll say download VI cheat sheet. Okay, cheat sheet, go ahead with that. Or there are a lot of PDF. You see the PDF. Or I can directly go, if I don't want PDF, online version, I'll remove the PDF. You can say cheat sheet. Now here are the commands. What you can say? Q, X, Z, Z, I, A, these, that. Lot of options you have. Okay, you have a lot of options with that. You can go along with these options and options and options and options and options. Right? There are a lot of options with VI editor. You can start going with that. So the minimum thing we will introduce, expertise you need to get later on. This is clear? So you will go with that, find the cheat sheet. Okay. So that's all about the basic introduction level. Now today we are going to start a new topic, which is a topic called as a Git. Now Git is a revision control system, version control system, and we will talk about that. So let's go with the topic Git. What is that? Revision control system. Sometimes it is called as a SCM, source code management. Okay, sometimes it's also called as source code management tool. So what is a Git and what is a revision? So what is a revision? Now revision means file versions. Let's say for example, you are preparing your resume.doc or resume.txt. You created that. Now you send your resume to your friends and members and these and that. Now somebody suggested that, hey, you need to do some modifications in your resume. So what you will do? You will create another copy, resume one.txt. That means you'll make a copy of that and then you'll update the copy and then you'll send it. They say, no, some more changes. Then what you'll do? You'll say resume v2.txt. So you'll keep on upgrading your versions of the file, or you'll change the name. Either you'll go with the v1, v2, v3, or you'll say latest resume, very latest resume, and so on, right? You'll keep on going with that. But you will give some different name or number or whatever stuff. You are maintaining the different versions of your resume. Now in real time, when people are working in the industry, they are working with the programs called as a Java program or C++ or PHP, right? So there are a lot of programming languages, Perl and Python, Ruby, shell scripting, and so on. Now, when you are developing a Java project, how many files you may have in the Java project? Maybe 1, 2, 5, 10, 100, 500, many files. Suppose you have 1 million files. How many files? 1 million means in our plain English, 10 lakh files. So whenever you talk, when you are talking with the US people, you have to talk in millions and billions, okay? Don't talk in lakhs and crores. They don't understand lakhs and crores. So you'll say 10 lakhs. Now you have 10 lakhs files in your project. How will you manage the version of each file? How will you control and do the work of these files? So practically, it is very difficult to go manually and do all these things. And that's why you need a tool which will help you to manage so many files, and there are so many versions. So one file may have 5, some file may have 10 versions, some file may have 100 versions, and so on. In real time, if I have to give the example, your operating system, either it is a Linux operating system or it is a Windows operating system, each and every file is in under version control. So when they are giving you the Windows 7, they exactly know what is the file they are giving to you, what version of file is that, how many number of lines that file have, every details they have. So it is not that it is a random collection of files. No, it is the exact collection of the files. And this is maintained under revision control. And that is why you need a tool which is called as revision control tool, which is also called as a source code management tool. Okay. Now, this concept is not new. This concept started in nearly 1972. So the first tool which got into the market for the revision control was the SCCM. Now what it was doing? It was doing for one file. How many files? It was maintaining the version of one file. Later on, another tool came which is called as RCS in the market. Now it says I can go with the hundreds of files or thousands of files. But it was not able to handle the number of directories. So another tool came into the market which is called as CVS, which says I can go with hundreds and thousands of files plus the number of directories, hundreds and plus directories. But this is also not sufficient. Why? Because now we want to have multi-user collaboration. So another tool came into the market which is a SVN, which is in the 2000, which has not only the multiple files, directories, but also number of users. So it will manage what? It will manage all of them. It will manage files, folders or directories, and number of users. And then it becomes very popular tool in the market. But these tools are called as FOSS. That means free and open source. What these are tools? Free and open source. You don't have to pay a single rupee, but you can enjoy all the tools. Okay. But there are also commercial tools are in the market, paid versions. What is that? You have Perforce, you have ClearCase, you have BitKeeper, and so on. There are a lot of commercial tools are also available for that. Now something interesting happened in the year of 2005. Now we'll talk about BitKeeper. Now what is a BitKeeper? BitKeeper is a software, same version control, but it was having interesting thing. What? You have entire Linux code inside that BitKeeper. Linux kernel code inside the BitKeeper. Now who has written the Linux? Linus Torvald. Who has written the Linux? Now people say to him, hey Linus, you are putting this code in the BitKeeper and you are maintaining, but if BitKeeper is not able to maintain the versions properly, if they have some bugs in the software, if they have something, what you will do? And that fear came into realization in the year of 2005. BitKeeper announces saying that we don't have sufficient funds, we are going to stop our company. Now that was a big problem with the Linux because all the code was in the BitKeeper. So then Linus Torvald came forward. He says, no problem, we will write our own thing. So he started writing the software called as a Git. And in April 2005, Git came into the market as a free and open source. From that point onwards, Git becomes the #1 revision control tool in the market. Now, not only because it's the new, it has lots and lots and lots of advantage over the traditional SVN tools. So let's go and understand what are the traditional features and stuff. So I'll go with the SVN and then I'll compare it with the Git. That why we are going with the Git and not with the SVN. Number one, Git is a client server model. That means you need to have one server and then you will have the clients. Now, what is the harm in that? No harm in that. But if your server goes down, your client will not able to do anything. So all people will in the office will sit down and wait for the server to come up. But Git is not the way. Git is what? It is a distributed version control system. What is that? It is a distributed version control system. That means, let's try to understand. Let me put some diagram here. Let me put some diagram. So what is there? So we are going with SVN. So SVN we have client server model. These are client, 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 and these are going with the SVN. So what we are doing? Hey, it will go and talk to the server, go and talk to the server, go and talk to the server, go and talk to the server. Right? So this is talk about SVN. Now in the same case, if we have the Git, so I'll say this is the Git, this is the Git, this is the Git, this is the Git. So whenever you are copying or doing something, both are the same copies. All have the same copies. All have the same copies. You see the equal size boxes? So your server and client are in the equal size. That means whatever is there on the server, exactly same is on the client. No file difference, even a single bit byte space or something. Now I will go with the Git. Now your server goes down. What will happen? No problem. I can set the other machine and I can point the other machine as my server. I can point my other machine. Hey, this is the server. Hey, this is the server. So now this will be my Git server. That's all. I don't have to worry about anything. That is why it is called as a distributed version control system. That means whatever the copies on the server, all client will have exactly same copy for that project. This is the beauty of fast. Okay, next. Let's go for the second point. I'll close this. I'll go back to the screen. Let's go with the second point. Client server model. Next, network. No need of network while working. That means, suppose you are using SVN, you have to sit in the computer and you need to continuously communicate with your server. Change server, change server. Every change, you have to talk to the server. But in the Git, suppose you want to travel from Hyderabad to Bangalore. What you'll do? First, you connect with the Git server, update the files. You go in the flight. You'll start coding in the flight. No problem. You don't need a Git server. You can maintain your versions in the flight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you landed in Bangalore, again you synchronize with the server. Everything is back to normal. Everything is back to normal. That flexibility you will not get with the SVN. You cannot work in the flight or in the garden or wherever you want. So you have to stick in the computer, you have to go in the network and do that. So people say, sorry, I can't do a creativity by sitting 24/7 in the office, right? So I can be anywhere and I can do the code change anywhere and I will do that. Good. That's the number 2 advantage. I don't need a network for offline working. So you can also work offline. Later on, once the server is available, synchronize with it. Done. No problem. Fast on network. So this is a slow on network. This is the fast on network. Now how? Suppose you have 5 MB data on your client. Now you want to upload that 5 MB data to the server. In the SVN, what it will do? It will take the 5 MB, it will upload the 5 MB. But with the Git, first it will compress the 5 MB, it will make it as 500 KB, and then it will transfer to the server. And then server will again make it again back and then put it there. So if I have slow network connection, SVN will screw you up. But Git can work good because it is compressing the files. It is compressing the, is clear? So that is fair. Now, when we are working heavy on disk, light on disk. So heavy on disk and light on disk means what? Suppose you have a project of 300 MB and you have to copy the code. How much size it will take? 300 MB. But when you do the copy in the Git, 300 MB becomes 3 MB only, because it uses certain techniques to copy the file in an intelligent way. So it will not make the file duplicate. In the Git, there is only one version of the copy available, and that is where you will work with that. That is a factor you will help in the Git. So copying is very easy, very fast, very efficient on the Git. Now that's why people go for Git. So this is clear. Now you will say, okay, Sunil, what you're talking makes sense. We will see the practicals one by one and we'll go there. So this is the short introduction I'm giving. So I will stop here today. Tomorrow we will go in deep down with the Git, and we will cover very, very big aspects, very, very different aspects of the Git. We will go how to install, how to configure, how to work with the Git. We will go with the different commands and so on. Okay. So today we will stop here. Tomorrow we will go with the more details. Okay. So any question at this moment, at this any point of time? Any questions from online? Okay, so hopefully you got a little bit idea, a couple of things with the networking we talked, VI editor we talked, and just a very surface scratching level introduction with the Git. So tomorrow onwards, we will go deep down in the Git, and then we'll start working with the Git. So if no questions, any questions from class? So you have the sheet. Looks like one question from the class. Whether we are going to the Chef and Ansible or something? Yes, we are dealing with both Chef and Ansible, so don't worry about that. Raman, it's a Raman GS, right? Okay, yeah, we are going to deal with both. We are going to talk about Chef and Ansible, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, any other questions we have? So please do not miss the sessions tomorrow, because it's a very important session. We are going with the Git, and if you miss the fundamentals of Git, then there is a problem. So I will say that please be in the class. Okay. Now, who are the new members today? Any new members? 1, 2, 3. So I will request, please wait after this class. We will talk about something on the DevOps and we will go further. So we'll stop today here. So thanks for your time, and see you tomorrow with great details. Take care and have a wonderful time. Bye-bye.